All right. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar, Relationship Transformation. Some of you know me. I'm Dominic Scaffidi, and I am, I'll just say a bit, I guess. So I'm an executive coach. I'm also a registered 3P, Three Principles practitioner. I'll introduce Lori in a second, but I'm excited about this topic and this webinar. And really, Lori is the one who's initiated it. And Lori, I'll introduce in a second, but she is one of Sydney Banks. She taught with Sydney Banks, was an early student with Sid Banks, and so had that experience of actually learning from him directly with the three principles. And I'll let you say, Lori, a few more things about you, but what excited me was Lori reaching out and asking me if I would like to do this program with her based on couples. And Lori, for a while, has been doing programs about relationships. And I think the one program you have is for singles, and then had this idea of doing one for couples as well. So anything else you'd like to say, Lori? I'll have you.
Yeah, it's just been such a pleasure working with you, Dominic. I was in a program of Dominic's called, let's see if I have it right, Living Miraculously. And I never resonated before Dominic, and I shared this with him, never resonated with the whole Abraham Hicks law of attraction that's spread not just through Esther Hicks, but other people, mainly the Hicks, I guess. And then I heard Dominic explain it through the three principles, through what Sid Banks brought to all of us. And all of a sudden, that's what Sid has been talking about. We are always creating, always 24/7. That's what the three principles point to, the fact that we are taking, what's the word I'm looking for? Pure, I guess that's the best word, unadulterated, pure energy, bringing it into the world of form through the ability to think. So the ability to think is the principle. What we think is what Dominic and I are going to be addressing today, how this affects relationships. What we think is our personal creation. And couple that with free will. I mean, we look at the world of nature and it is so awe-inspiring that somehow, how does salmon know to swim upstream to spawn? I mean, the miracles all over nature. And then you look at us and you realize, you know what? We're miraculous also. We're also part of this amazing miracle. So part of it is that we are designed with free will. We have the free will to accept or reject, let go, fall away. There's so many different ways that we have all described letting go of the thinking that is not healthy for us, that is not helpful. So it's absolutely a pleasure for me to be doing this with Dominic, and we'll see where we go, right? And thank you all for joining us from all over the place. Yeah.
And Lori, you've been doing this work and specifically in different ways. Maybe just say a bit about that, because like for me, I'm a coach, and that's kind of the way that I've been doing it. But in terms of your
right, everybody may not know.
Yeah,
where,
especially on YouTube.
Yeah,
not everybody knows.
So I never planned to be a therapist. I think this is really valuable to know. I was an art teacher in a junior high school. I was an art teacher so that my parents told me, well, you have some art talent and you should be home when your children are home. Well, I was never blessed with children. It's just what happened, you know. And but I will say, I was freaked out about that before meeting Sid Banks. I was freaked out and I was on a search to find out not only how to get pregnant, but also, I mean, how to find a husband in order to get pregnant. I mean, you know, it was just this long line of have to do this. And oh, it was such a burden. I was so burdened by everything I thought I had to do to be the person I'm supposed to be. And I kind of went along to a talk by this unknown person at the time, Sydney Banks, who had no initials after his name. And I was one of these snobs, you know. And I went and something really hit me, which was, I don't know what Sid said. And I kind of poo-pooed. I still, even though I was hit so big, kind of poo-pooed that anything had to do with something Sid said. So what hit me was that it's not all up to me. That as long as I look in the direction of a peaceful state of mind, the things out there, the husband, the children, the white picket fence, the whatever, is not going to come through me wanting it. It's going to come, whatever will come, maybe not those things, but something beautiful comes. Real, according to the state of mind that I do my best to live in. I'm not there, I'm not at a peak, wonderful experience 24/7, but oh my gosh, so much more than pre-Sid Banks than before, you know. And I'll be honest with all of you, I walked away from it because I was married. It was my former husband who introduced me to Sid Banks. And but it was not the right relationship for the long haul. So what I saw is, this is why we came together, because I have something incredible that will never leave. It will just deepen. So I think that's about it. Oh, and then, you know, when I said to Dominic, what do you think about us doing this? First of all, you're in a long-term marriage, you're male. You know, I've done a lot with Christine Heath. She's the co-author of the book that this program, the course that Dominic and I created, that it's based on that book, The Secret of Love. Many of you are familiar with it. And, you know, so it's nice to have the male-female combination. And so I'm just really thrilled. And then when I said to Dominic, he said, I really like your book. So that just upped the ante there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Your turn,
yeah,
Dominic.
the book. Well, the book is fantastic. What I loved about it was all story after story and kind of real life examples that brought to life every piece that that's mentioned, like so throughout the chapters. So that's very powerful. Many actual examples and stories of that. And for me, this idea of, you know, I'm grounding in three principles. The idea of creating that we create our reality. It's kind of, it's easy when you're on your own, and then when it's like the relationship bit, you go, well, wait a minute. Like, how much of this is created in my reality, and then how's this with the other person? And there's a couple things. So it's an interesting thing that it begins to bring into it. And so these the experience of our relationship is one that is either the way you would want it to be, or it's not the way you want it to be in some ways. There may be aspects of it that are the way you want it to be, and then other aspects that are not. And to think that, and that's all you, right? That's all kind of flowing and created in your own mind with your own thought. And in a relationship, and in a couple, it really seems sometimes you can get wrapped up in, but it isn't me. It isn't me. It is the other person, or at least they've got a part to play. So that's what I'm excited about exploring more deeply in this program.
Yeah, beautiful. So why don't we dive in now? I think most people have entered.
Yeah.
And the first thing we want to talk about is how we have society. I think, there are people from different countries on the call now. You could probably attest to this fact in your country, even maybe not. That'll be interesting in the discussion at the end. But there is this here, my experience in the United States, there is this misnomer that relationships have to be worked on. And I've been a couples therapist now since 1985. Kind of gives away my age, doesn't it? Well, I started young. But everyone who has come through the door has used that terminology. And when you think about it, working on a relationship, and that's been spread by my own profession, the traditional way of couples therapy is that it has to be worked on, and people came up with tools and strategies and all sorts of things to get it. Tools, like literally, you're going to work on a piece of lumber or something and fit it to the other piece of lumber. Well, when people think about working on a relationship, they cower. Who wants to do that? Because that implies that there's something wrong with the relationship. And what I learned early on from Sid Banks is there's literally nothing wrong with any human. Every person is born with perfect, innate health. And for those of you who know the psychiatrist in Arizona now, I think, Bill Pettit, you may know that his logo is never broken, nothing lacking. And I love that. That is true not only of you, but whoever you are coupled with. Even your relatives who are not your significant other, your employees, your employer, anybody you come in relationship with, their soul, their spirit is perfect. Now that's an interesting thing to have a look at. You take it from there, Dominic. I want to hear what you say about that.
Yeah, this part about working on the problems is it's obvious when you think about it, because you're always experiencing whatever you're focused on. You're always experiencing whatever you're thinking about. And so the very idea of saying, I'm going to work on this problem in my relationship begins to put a focus right onto that thing. And well, what's also a realization is that that problem is not actually there. So a problem is can only be perceived. It can only be, of every problem is constructed of thought. So the problem in my relationship, the problem with my partner, exists in my mind, and it is made up of thought, just like everything else I'm experiencing. So what a trap it is, and this is why we kind of looked at this as one of these essentials, like what a trap it is to have innocently constructed or created an issue, something wrong, and then to begin to engage to fix the thing, to begin to get into conversation with someone around this thing that's an issue. Well, now we're just making it, the more we've taken it, it's kind of interesting because it in a way, if you want to give anything more reality, thought, first of all, is a formless energy. Sid Banks talked about how this formless energy expresses or comes into form first via thought. So that's the beginning of creation. You get this formless energy, and it comes into form via thought, and it forms all things. So a thought is what we're dealing with. Now, when it's a thought and in the form of a thought, it's really not that big a deal, because it just kind of sits in my head and it's just like, you wouldn't know necessarily that there's anything, you wouldn't know there's a problem. But what happens is, in my mind, it's now real. And now we go further to, I begin to express. So now I start talking about it. The minute you start talking about this, there's more reality to it. In the moment of talking about it, it's becoming more physical, more real, more manifested. And because we can literally perceive it with senses. And by the time you're behaving about that as though it were true, there's now a lot of physical going on around, which is why it really seems to us, but this really is a problem. And what a truthful statement to say, this isn't just in my head, Well, yeah, you made sure of that. You made sure it wasn't just in your head. It's now expressed physically. It is now literally a thing. And it's interesting because the trap of this thought and the nature of thought is it only lives and exists in your experience by your attention to it, by your focus upon it. A thought, a personal thought, has no life of its own. It's not wandering around in your mind. You invite it. So a personal thought is a thought that has your attention. You give it attention, and your attention, your consciousness, is the only thing that's bringing it to life. And as it comes to life, then you feed it with your attention. And now you get talking about this with someone else, this problem, and you get talking about it with someone else. It has more life and more life and more life. And we've all heard the idea of a train of thought. This energy has a momentum, and it will keep building and building and moving in that direction. And the more it is fed with attention, the bigger and bigger it becomes, and the more of your mind it fills. Sid talked about levels of consciousness. And that problem came out of a level of consciousness that I happen to be on. That's the only way it can show up. Well, there's plenty more thoughts like that one on this level of consciousness. So if you think you like that one, wait till you see what else is coming, because there are plenty more, all of them in that same feeling, in that same level of consciousness. And of course, the joke is that here I am in this level of consciousness. I think I'm going to fix my problem. Good luck. Your whole feeder system and what's coming to you in your thinking is all on the same level of consciousness that has given you this problem, created this problem. And it's why Einstein said we will never solve a problem at the same level that we created, from the same way of thinking that we created it.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Yeah. So you can imagine how lives change, relationships transform as people really start seeing this, because it's so profound. It's like turning yourself inside out, because we experience life, including love, from the inside out. How many couples I have heard through the years wanting a different sort of love, or if he or she should pay more attention to me, then I'll know she really loves me, or all these ideas that people come up with, and they don't realize they're only looking real because consciousness is bringing it to our attention. That's the other principle. Sid talked about 3 principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. Consciousness brings whatever we think to life. And we have the capacity to realize through a feeling, typically. I mean, sometimes you realize that your thinking is really off base. You need a nap, or you need to go take care of yourself in some way, have a nice quiet walk, quiet your mind down. But the feeling will tip you off. And it's a bad feeling that causes people to think that, wow, this is because of my relationship. This is because of my partner. We have to fix this. We have to work on this. Wrong answer.
One of the other aspects we said around this was how loving yourself, and I might say knowing yourself, is essential. I used to think that I need to get to know the other, right? And in my relationship, the early days, it's like I'll get to know pizza more and more and more. I'll get to know my wife more and more and more, which makes sense. There's more to know, but there's something to distinguish around knowing the content, the history of another, the thinking of another, like all of that, which is distinct from knowing who they are, knowing who they really are. Since this understanding, I would say that I've come to know or feel more intimacy and knowing, because this understanding takes you to who the other person, who everyone, it's not even the other person, but it's for who everyone really is. So when I know, or when I'm exploring myself, my true nature, who I really am, how these principles, mind, thought, and consciousness, play out for me, that understanding has me see and know and truly, truly understand another. So that noticing for me how I am caught up into a thought and how real it is, and how I'm getting impatient and irritated, and what that looks like as something is going on that I'm sure it's disrespectful to me, and that's done against me, right? So noticing myself getting into that and then realizing, oh, what just happened? Then there's an understanding you get as you understand that, of really watching and seeing that happen for anyone else, including your partner. And so we're all the same in that way. There's an essence that's all the same. So knowing yourself and loving yourself is actually essential in creating an amazing relationship.
Yeah, I love that. You hear a lot lately about loving yourself. Well, what does that really mean? I used to think it meant, good job, Lori. You did good at this and not so good at that, but that's okay. You got to love yourself anyway. Has nothing to do with what Dominic and I are talking about. Has nothing to do with us personally. Loving ourselves is really loving life, because when you start to see, how do I want to say this? Just, and some of you on the call may not be very far into your understanding of the principles, but there are other entry points to recognizing that we're part of this great experience, part of this amazing, it's spring is popping out here all over. And I just love driving around because every day there's a new set of colors. It's like a symphony. First the yellows come out, and now the white cherry blossoms and dogwoods, and it's phenomenal. It's a like a psychedelic show to me. And so that feeling of appreciation and love is the feeling you're looking for in life. And then it's easy to feel that for your partner, right? If you're not in judgment of yourself, you're less likely to be in judgment of the other person. Now, judgment thoughts will enter, boo, boo, boo. And the more you see what we're talking about, the deeper you see it, the easier it is to let go of judgment. They'll come to visit, but you don't want to invite them in as guests. You don't want to feed them. You want to let them go on their merry way. They're stopping by, and oh, so what?
The feeling part is the really important in this. The feeling part is full of information, and it so much relates to this. In knowing who you really are, understanding yourself more, you know yourself as this energy of all things. That's the truth of you. Sydney Banks said, there is an energy of all things. He called that God. And then he said that who you are is a microscopic aspect of that energy of all things. You are an aspect of it. You are an expression of it. So that energy of all things, God, what labels have been used when people refer to this sort of eternal and infinite energy? Labels that are used are often labels like love, peace, joy, abundance. So we do have a sense of what that source, truth of me is. I can know that that's the source and truth of me. It's the truth of each. Right? So every one of us a microscopic aspect, a unique expression of that same energy. So then feeling becomes this. So in this moment, we are that energy, we share in its nature, which means that I have a mind, which is really sharing a piece of what that mind is. My me, little me, this finite me, is not an infinite intelligence, but I am not separate from that infinite intelligence. But from this finite and physical perspective, there's a personal element to that. We share in its nature. So this feeling is my source feeling. And then I am given the gifts, these principles, gifts, mind, I'm aware, conscious, and with the freedom of thought, which is really the freedom to focus within consciousness anywhere I want. As I do that, then the thought, and Laurie talked about a jealous thought, or a thought of I've been disrespected, or someone's being rude, or I'm not valued, like some thought. That thought, as it comes, also is made of that energy. Everything is made of the same energy. As my focus zeroes in on that thought, which is fluttering around, I am beginning with my focus to harmonize with this energy. And when we say that we feel our thinking, the way I describe what that is that there is a true source energy, which is love, joy, bliss, and abundance. And then in this moment, I am focused somewhere. And if I'm focused on a thought, how angry I am about something, my personal vibration from that personal thought is different now than the truth of me. And what I feel is that disharmony. I call it anger. I call it impatience. I call it irritation. And that's what I'm feeling. And what's so valuable to realize that is I used to think that my anger was telling me something important. This is really important. It's telling me about what's going on out there, and that's just wrong what's happening, right? So that irritation and impatience was telling me about something that was happening out there. And what I came to learn from this teaching is, oh, I've deviated from this truth of me into a focus. And now I am feeling that thought relative to the truth of who I am. And when I think against who I really am and my true nature, it will never, ever feel good. It will never feel good. And this is where Sydney Banks said, wisdom, your wisdom is only in a positive feeling. Your wisdom is only in a positive feeling. When you are thinking in harmony with the truth of love, joy, abundance, peace, when you're thinking in harmony with the truth of that, it will feel good. That will feel resonant to you. If you have a thought against it, you will feel it immediately. It will begin to deviate, and it will begin the, call it discomfort that you begin to feel.
Yeah, and the incredible thing about how we're designed is that we get the feedback of unhealthy thinking and a feeling like Dominic shared. feeling uptight, judgmental, aggravated, impatient, that feeling lets us know, look inside, not out there. And we've been taught just by how people behave that it's out there, the problem. We feel bad because of what my partner is doing or what he should be doing that he's not doing, all the judgment. But no, we're feeling bad because we're thinking about that. One of the first trainings I was in Florida. Some of you have heard about AHSI, that was run by Enrique Suarez, Dr. Suarez. And he gave this example. I mean, this dates way back and it still sticks with me. He said, can't believe this just happened. They were living in like an open floor plan, and his wife Ginger was making tea, and he was like mumbling about something he was aggravated that she had just done. And she didn't hear him. She turned around and she said, and she put her head around the corner of the kitchen, and she said, "Hey, Rick, do you want some tea with me?" She just didn't hear that he was complaining. And so he brought that to the group of us the next day as a great example that if you don't hear something, it's not in your consciousness. It's not in your experience. She was in a good mood. His bad mood didn't rub off on her because she didn't see it. Now, when you understand how this works, your partner can be in a bad mood and it won't send you into a tailspin. You won't start thinking, well, what did I do wrong? And, he's mad at me. It won't go there. You may offer, can I help? Anything you need? And take whatever the person says. No, I just need space. Just leave me alone. You don't have to take offense to that. It's so easy for people to take offense because because of their own thinking.
Yeah, that's been huge. With my wife and I have two kids, a boy and a girl. They're older. They're old now. Older. But even you look at the opportunities for conflict, and the opportunities for conflict. We should do this. We should allow this. No, we shouldn't allow that. And before this understanding, that conflict just has a different, just seems so real, versus understanding that, that what my wife is saying makes perfect sense to her. What I'm saying makes perfect sense to me. What she's saying makes perfect sense to her. Nobody is saying something that doesn't make sense. And so it doesn't, it's not the conflict doesn't have that same charge, I guess. What it's left me with out of this understanding is a greater curiosity around, wow, that makes sense. I wonder from what thinking or how that would make sense. And I wonder how that makes sense for whatever might be important to her, because what I'm saying makes total sense from what's important to me. And so what this has opened up is more of conversation and exploration for a deeper understanding. It seems like a deeper understanding of each other, but really the truth is I've gotten a deeper understanding of myself, because every one of these conflicts that appears as a charge for me everything that's an irritation, everything that looks like I'm getting upset and angry can and does lead to a deeper understanding of me. It really is not about what's gone on there. It's what I'm thinking about that. And I had no idea I actually think that. Had no idea I actually think that. And now that emotion tells me, yeah, there is a thought, and you do think that. And you called that thought. There's a funny, you talk about these funny stories early on in our marriage. My wife Keitsa, at one point, we're in a condo, and now you got to know, and Keitsa does all the shopping. She's into cooking. She's like getting the ingredients, everything, she like all that. At some point, and we have our kitchen, and there's was a little pantry off. We were in a condo, and there's a little pantry off to the side. You open the door and put stuff in there. So any extra stuff you buy, you put it in. Some point, she was getting irritated and more and more and more irritated, and at some point blew up. There's no water in the fridge. There's no pop in the fridge, like whatever drinks we were getting at that time. I was astonished. I was like, you're the one who buys it. Like if it goes in the fridge, it goes in the fridge, I guess, right? Like I didn't. Well, turns out, growing up at her house, their pantry was in the basement. And so things like water and pop, which were heavy, her dad had to go down and get them. And he had to bring them up, and then he would put them in that's his job. Well, I didn't know it was mine. So it's those kinds of things that start to happen. It's like, who knew that that's a thought? Who knew that that's a thing? But living in a reality like, but that's your job. So hilarious when we kind of uncovered what that was and then could laugh about it. Should we move to questions?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. Yeah,
Yes,
that's a
yes.
great idea. We're going to move to questions in a minute. And that was such a great story. What a great example, right? Of understanding. I really want everybody on the call to realize this. We're not talking about a doing. This is not, principles to live by. This is principles to understand, because then you have that perspective where you see what, like that example that Dominic just gave is perfect for that. So yeah, let's move to questions. It's perfect.
All right. And so we'll go to questions, and the webinar is 75 minutes. So we'll go till just past the hour. And but as we go, we'll also let you know and announce that this webinar is done an introduction to a 6-week program that Lori and I will do for couples. And the program starts on May 4th. It's the same time, like a 1 p.m. So the time you're on now at the webinar. And it runs for, we're going to do 6 weekly sessions, and they are 90 minutes. So we go for an hour and a half. And the program consists of where we will take topics and ideas, those principles in each session, and kind of explore it. A lot of it, we do recommend the book as reading, Secret to Love. That's going to be, but these are the kinds of things that we will be exploring. And so, and you're invited to come as a couple. So when you register, you can one registration, and you can come on your own if you want. But if you want to come as a couple, we encourage that, obviously, even more. I'll put a link. Oh, thank you. So Lori put
it in the chat. Yeah, the link is in the chat. Yeah, and what could happen? You could get into a fight, with your partner if he or she doesn't want to do this. So we're going to caution you.
Don't do that.
Right. You come yourself because you know what? And it's the very first example in this is the book, The Secret of Love. You could also get it at, I think Amazon has the audio, but you could also get it
Audible
on
is
iTunes.
the book. Yeah, I've been listening to the
Audible,
book too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So listen to it too, yeah.
good.
And the very first chapter talks about one of the couple started to see, the gig here about how love comes from us and also negativity comes from us also. And her partner, many of you know Chip Chipman, he was very resistant. They have YouTubes about this story. It's beautiful. But he came around because he realized he couldn't fight with her anymore like he used to. So anyway, it's a great story.
Yes,
And
that story was powerful. Yeah, he just
yeah,
couldn't fight. She was unfightable with. She just it would all go past her. When she saw the principles, she just couldn't get wrapped up in the things she was getting wrapped up. And he didn't know what the hell was going on because they had a particular way of dancing. A relationship is like a dance, we could say. And so even if you come alone and you kind of think, but if I go alone, like how's that going to impact anything? Well, you're in relationship and the relationship is in a dance. And the way the relationship is the way a dance is. You move a certain way and the other person moves a certain way. And they move a certain way and then you move in response to that. This is what's going on. And some of it you like and some of it you don't like. And then you kind of say, well, yeah, I don't like that. They need to change. Wow. Well, they're not going to change. And what's going on is really co-created. It's co-created between that's the way a dance works, is it's co-created. So you say, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, yeah, there's nothing you can do to control another person. There's nothing you can do that has another person change. But once you start to see more deeply, things that used to make sense to you no longer make sense to you. And that was, I know, in Jan's view, when she and Chip would get into these regular fights on the same stuff, right? The same topics. And then she suddenly saw, wait a minute, there's this dance. He'll say that and I say this, or I'll say this because I know he'll say that. And that it's like, just became obvious. And then, as you said, Lori, there's no tips here. Once you wake up, oh my gosh, is that what I'm doing? Whoa, is that what's been going on? Once you wake up, a whole lot of stuff doesn't make sense anymore. And so what starts to happen is you've transformed because that makes no sense to me anymore. And so now your moves are different in the dance because you're now moving with what makes more sense to you than what did before. Well, if your moves are different, the way I'll say it is you've now disturbed everything.
in a good
Because
way.
if there's a dance, you just disturb the dance. And so when there's a dance that you've never enjoyed and haven't liked, and now you disturb it, it cannot go on the way it went on. And so therefore it must find a new way. And that's what happens. And that's what transformation is. It transforms into something different. And the opportunity is there now to create it in a way that you want, rather than in however that got created that nobody wanted. So, yeah.
I see a
Deep,
golden hand being raised.
very
You
good.
ready for a question, Dominic?
Yes, one final thing I'll say. In the workshop, the 6 weeks, We also, Lori and I talked about this, it's also risk-free. So if you register for it and pay 2 out of the 6, so you come to the first 2 of the weekly sessions, and or replay if not, but really it's to come to those 2 initial. If you really notice you're not resonating with it, so you just email and let us know that, and you get a full refund. So there's no risk in that. Damien.
Hi, Laurie. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, Damien.
I'm just laughing, like, the first 2, if you don't like it, there's no risk. I'm laughing at, I mean, Laurie, I don't know you, but Dominic is always so clean. It's like, there's not even a breath of, but maybe, and there's no sales, there's no nothing. It's all clean. I love that. I mean, it's just the way he is. So anyway, my question is, and Dominic, you sort of answered it, so, I mean, I'm single, been through a marriage, I've been through a lot of relationships. So, so it's like really loving yourself, and everything is just a thought. And I'm very big into Abraham. So Dominic, you sort of answered my question. Since Laura, you're an expert in relationships. For me, loving yourself is what works for you. And if you're okay, for me, I looked at my relationships my whole life, and it was in lack. I need this to fix me, make me better, make me smarter. So that was not really being truthful to myself. So what I'm understanding is, if I'm really truthful to myself, like, say whatever, the example of Dominic, going for the soda and everything, and that worked out. But if you're really your self-giving and the other person doesn't get it, that means it just doesn't work and they're the wrong person. Would that be right?
So what I'll say about that is this will sound funny, right? So that'll be nothing to think about.
Right.
Because as you pay attention to the only thing you can pay attention to that makes any difference, and that is who you really are, and living to your highest understanding of who you really are. Right. Remember what I said about what that essence of you is. That is love, peace, abundance. Now, the further you are from the truth of that, the truth of who you really are, the harder you are to live with.
Right. So
the further you are, the harder it is.
So the further so with the Abraham, I'm not real thorough as 3 P's as I am in Abraham. So the farther you are, if you're with somebody and there's a lot of resistance, it's showing you're not paying attention to who you really are. If you're really who you are, then they get to really be who they are. And
but if there's resistance, if you're picking up resistance, is that coming from you?
Okay.
Or from them?
It just came into my mind. So I was with this girl, living with her, we're going to get married, blah, blah, blah. It's like, so she likes flowers, So maybe I bring home flowers. And what's this for? What's that for? Well, I thought, so maybe she's just in a bad mood, and I'm doing something that I think is nice. Okay. So say you do something that works for you and it doesn't work for the other person 2 or 3 times. So I would say, you know what? I really thought I wanted this type of person, but obviously the universe is saying colder. No, this is not. You're Damien, and this was true. Damien, you're trying to make this work. You're not listening. We need to add more.
Bingo. Right. You just said you're not listening.
I'm not listening. This is the wrong person. Stop looking there.
May not
Let
be
them-
the wrong person. It may not be the wrong person, but you're not listening to her. She may feel awkward with somebody bringing her flowers. You don't know that yet.
well,
See,
that
we
was-
do
that was-
in the course, Damon and I are going to spend a lot on listening.
right. But the truth that I found out through doing some digging is I wanted this person because she was very organized and smart, and I wanted to be more organized and smart. And the truth that I heard from somebody is, oh, so you want from her what you need to get from yourself. I was like, what? So that was a big awakening. So I'm gonna say that's learning me more, is what both of you guys are saying. The more you learn you'll see how you're getting in the way. And once you learn more how to not to get in the way of your thinking, which sets everything up, once you're more clear, less resistant relationships will show up because you're less thinking what you need, what you really don't need. Am I making sense?
Mhm. The more in harmony you are,
Right.
in that feeling, that beautiful feeling in harmony with the truth of you, then the more in harmony that you begin to match up. And so that is either who comes and who is repelled.
Right.
Both. And then even in the existing relationship, the kinds of behaviors and interactions that are harmonious with where you're at are more available
Right.
and less likely to have a space for what is not.
So
that
can,
harmony.
can you give me an Abraham example, meaning like you're in a relationship and say there's some resistance? Is that showing you, like Abraham says, there's only two things. The universe is going to show you what you want and what you don't want. So how can I take it as a guidance? I think I answered my question maybe. So once you clean yourself up, less of what you don't want. Am I making sense? Because I know you're right on it.
Yeah.
I have
yeah.
a beautiful, I would suggest that you're overthinking.
Well,
I have a beautiful story about this that'll illustrate this, I think, beautifully. And it's in the book,
Yeah.
actually. Some of you know Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly is a psychologist. And he was in his ego a lot when he was dating. His story is in the book. So he's in his ego, and he would go into a room to meet women, party, whatever. And he would search for the most beautiful woman. He didn't care if she was interesting or not. He just wanted the prettiest one. It's a funny story. So he gets with a woman who, by the way, is now his wife for many, many years. And she's really, really quiet. And he says to her, you've been really quiet. And so I understand if I'm not the one for you, you're not really thrilled with this meeting, we can call it quits. And she said, well, I think I'm just shy.
Right.
And he loved that because that connected him more with her,
Right.
because she's humbling herself to just say, oh, it's not that I don't like you. It's that I'm just shy. I'm quiet naturally. They're in a long-term marriage, Susan. Yeah. It's a great story.
No, that's perfect. And the reason I'm saying this is, first of all, is the workshop only for couples, or should be?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Is the workshop only for couples, or it should?
Oh, well, this one is for couples, but
Okay.
like Dominic mentioned, there is one for single people, and I'll put that in
Okay. So
that's the precursor. And then you get in your couple, and then you come to
right.
our.
So my overthinking is I'm very hungry to look at myself because I want to play in life and not push and shove. I want to work on being more clear. So I love your guys' feedback. That's, yeah, I get it.
I just put it in the chat for you.
I'll find
the
it.
one
I got.
for, and that's open
Okay.
enrollment. You can come in anytime. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. All right, so that's basically it. It's basically, loving yourself means how do you really walk and talk, and how do you really are in sync, or how do you really get in your way? And the more I learn how to not get in my way, then the other part, if there's too much static, you're looking the wrong way. If there's not, that, yeah, I get it. Okay, I got it.
And all static, every bit of resistance is all personal thinking. It's all
Yeah,
thought.
perfect.
Right?
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
how you'll instantly be able to tell.
And the
Thanks,
resistance that
Damien.
shows up is reminding me, nope, not that way. You're going the wrong way.
Yes, that's the
All right.
guidance you get from it.
Perfect. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll add just one more piece to that, and
Go
then
ahead,
we'll
go
take
ahead.
more questions, which is stay in the moment to the best of your ability. Just stay present in the moment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we all drift off past. Well, I remember when she did this, and future. Oh, what's going to happen? Just bring yourself back to the
So
moment.
real quick, if I just met this person, which Dominic knows, I was like, what would be nice? Somebody like this I haven't seen in a long time that I really don't remember and everything. And it happened 2 weeks ago. And I recommended this thing. She can't listen to it now, but she'll listen to it later. So somebody just met. Damien, go to the single things first, or maybe if she's open, you guys can come into this. What would be your thought? Either one,
Yeah.
Dominic or Laurie. It's just an opinion. I get it. It ain't fact.
Yeah. Probably couples. And you'll know.
Okay, I got it. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll listen.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you both.
What other comments or questions or sharing or anything?
I don't
that this
see any
may have
other
said.
golden hands up yet. Sharing any insights that you had during this webinar would be great to hear. Anything new you saw or realized. Something you hadn't thought of before. Oh, okay, Kay.
Katie?
Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear
Hi
me?
there. Yes.
I liked what you were saying about loving yourself, and I like the distinction you made, Laurie, and that's something I'm not sure that I still understand in the whole 3 principles thing but I'm getting that there's a little bit in George Pansky's relationship handbook that I was reading the other day that's like about enjoying and appreciating each other. And I'm like, what I'm getting from what you were saying is it's not even necessarily about enjoying and appreciating each other. It's just about enjoying and appreciating kind of this, whatever is in your life. Like the more your kind of attention is on enjoying and appreciating whatever you can see to enjoy and appreciate, the more that grows. And like the more your attention is on moaning and complaining about anything, including your partner, the more that grows.
It's a powerful insight. Sometimes,
It's
depending
not very
where.
easy to do, though.
Well, what's a powerful insight, because what's not easy to do is to enjoy and appreciate a partner who's irritating or upsetting me. So it's a very powerful insight to say, well, I don't need to do that, because that's really hard. That's a level of consciousness that I don't have access to right now, right?
Right.
But I certainly can enjoy and appreciate the beautiful flowers that are starting to come out. That I can, right? And so I'm only one point of consciousness. And so what is the feeling that I'm immersed in, and what is the feeling that I'm in? And why am I doing this? I do it for me. I do it for me because I want to live in a way that's joyful and loving and appreciative, because it feels good to me to live that. It feels good for me to live as who I really am. And I'm just going to do that. And then watch
Right.
what happens.
Okay. Yeah. I do hear that. I think that's why it was interesting when I read that in George Pransky's book, because it's like, how often do you look to your partner as the source of enjoyment and appreciation, and then when you don't
Right.
find them to be the source of enjoyment and appreciation, you're irritated, annoyed, and pissed off with them all the time. Then it's like the whole thing is just sort of spiraling in the wrong direction. But the other thing that I think I had a bit of an insight about it last night, actually. Some things that you were saying resonated was when you were talking about your wife. My husband is a very kind of quiet sort of person, doesn't talk a lot. And that's always been an issue for me. And then last night I was thinking, do you know what? I think for me, kind of growing up, I'd go silent when I was moody. So I think I just constantly interpret his silence as him being in a bad mood, him like rejecting me, him ignoring me, him like not being happy with me. And it just is like this permanent cycle that I'm in, that I kind of don't feel safe or loved or cared for, because he's just naturally quite a quiet person, and I'm naturally quite a chatty person, and my way of connecting and communicating is through talk. And so I've always really struggled with, how do you connect and communicate when one person doesn't really use words? But maybe I'm just misinterpreting all the while that he's just in a slightly bad mood, because that's what I do if I'm in a bad mood, is like, you know, right, I'm not talking to you anymore.
That's beautiful. That's a huge insight. Look at how innocently you've been in an experience and a reality of a husband who's not in a good mood and doesn't really want to be talking to you, right? It's like have been living in a reality, like that's how powerful thought is. And then that insight, out of having that insight, by the way, that's all you need. You don't need to do anything about it. It's just the seeing of it. It's like it's you just unplugged it. It was plugged into the wall and it was all singing and dancing. And now once you have that insight, you just pulled the plug on the whole thing. And the life that was in it that made it look so real is suddenly starting to dissipate and deflate.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go away straight away, but I think there's a kind of a chance of a reality check-in with myself now. You know, it's just kind of been going like, really, you know, because it's such a go-to place. It's like a habit that I've had for the entire relationship. It's like, so yeah, you know, things do come to the surface about what reality are we living in as a result of the thinking, and the thinking that's unseen. I think for me, that was an unseen thought, yes. You know, that kind of been running the show in the background for quite a long time, or a long time.
I love that you said that. The thinking is unseen and the feeling never is.
No, but I was definitely doing that kind of like, well, he just needs to change his behavior and be more chatty and then I'll be okay.
The feeling you are aware of.
Yeah.
The feeling you are aware of. I have a feeling that's disturbed. I know instantly that there is thinking going on. And by the way, in any disturbed feeling, it is personal thinking. Really, I could say that in this moment of this irritation and impatience, I am believing something untrue. Shortcut right there. I am believing something not intelligent. How do I know that? Because the truth within me is an infinite intelligence. And if I was thinking from that infinite intelligence, it would only feel good. So this irritation and upset that I'm feeling, I don't know what I'm thinking, but I can tell you that given this irritation and upset, I am thinking something not true, not intelligent. It's kind of all you need to know.
Yeah,
So
I guess the insights just kind of take their time. They come when they come, right? Because I've probably been doing that for years and years and years, and it was only last night that it kind of occurred to me Why do I find this silence so difficult?
But insights are transformational. If you were in your house right now because it's pouring rain outside and it's been for 2 days and you're not going anywhere, and then you discover, because all your blinds were closed and everything, it's actually a beautiful sunny day. It's transformational. There's nothing else you need from that insight. Everything about you would change. You would go out instead of staying in. Everything would change. And you don't need a strategy for that. You don't need anything. And it doesn't even take any time. Insights are instant in the moment. Your entire reality is different. Your entire relationship becomes different in that moment.
Yeah. And I also loved your metaphor of the dance too. Having been a big dancer all my life, it's like, oh, and about the dance that got created like unintentionally. It's like, it'll be like, we're dancing a waltz, but actually I prefer a jive. So what are we doing? You know, it's like, I'm going to start dancing a jive and then you'll have to jive with me because that's just how it works.
Amazing.
You know, what's beautiful is, you know, when we wake up to something that has not been useful, that we've been buying into, when we wake up to that, it's a blessing. If you can see it as from the standpoint of gratitude. I know when I was first learning this, that when I say this, when I was first learning about the principles, I would beat myself up thinking, well, you should know better than getting sad and depressed. You know, you've been around this for X amount of time. And that was just more thinking, judgment, negative thinking. So then I realized, what am I doing? Duh. That's the moment to be really grateful. I'm so grateful that I saw that. Boom.
Yeah.
You know, we're all human.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
really true
innocent, right? We mess
Yeah.
up just like partners, just like everybody in our life messes up innocently because they're listening to their own negative thinking, not knowing that. They don't know that.
Mm. Yeah, and I must have been having a lot of insights yesterday then, because the other thing that occurred was this sort of my biggest problem is probably not my husband. My biggest problem is that I judge myself really harshly. And then of course that's not the energy of appreciation and gratitude again, is it? Just for yourself. So it's like, oh, I'm never going to get anywhere while I'm kind of like holding a gun to my head, really.
So true.
And trying to have a happy relationship by not really enjoying me first, you know. I think that's what you meant, wasn't it? It's kind of like
beautiful. Yes. Yeah. See, you're starting to notice judgment, not just for you, for other people. Yeah. I mean, have all of you noticed, like if your partner, like Kay's example about, you know, let's say your partner is irritated and upset. Well, if you take it personally, you're going to go down that rabbit hole with that person, feeling awful, miserable. But if you realize, hey, I know what irritation is about. I've been there. I know what it's like. And that pulls out compassion for the other person who's going through a hard time. You just feel love and compassion, and you know that it's not going to last forever. It's a temporary condition. All thinking is temporary, even when people hang on to it and work it, even that's going to be more, you know, that's not going to last a lifetime. But the less you hold on to it and work it, the more temporary it's going to be. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what a day you had. So many insights. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Beautiful. Where do you live, Kay?
I'm in the UK, in the South Coast. Yeah, I'm often awake at night thinking particularly about the relationship, but for some reason last night I was just like, yeah, it's that kind of like, you know, this energy of judgment, it really doesn't achieve anything. Maybe when
Wow.
I noticed that, that's when I kind of started sort of thinking, like Damien was saying earlier, I kind of was like thinking, well, you know, maybe this relationship just isn't the right one for me. And then it was like, no, maybe that's not it. It's not that it's not the relationship. It's that I'm not being in relationship to myself and to my
Wow.
husband in a way that is going to make this be a kind of more happy experience. It's like, doesn't mean ditch the husband. It means change the dance, I think,
Wow.
to use your metaphor.
Amazing. That's
Do you know
huge.
what the real relationship is for all of us? It's the relationship we have with our own thinking. That's the underlying relationship. The relationship we have with our own thinking. Do we take it seriously? Do we run with everything we think? Or do we have an understanding that our thinking is personal? It's not the real deal. It's not the whole deal. It's nothing.
And the patterns are on repeat, right? I'm like, oh, I just go to the same patterns constantly on repeat over and over and over. Like, oh, maybe I don't have to do that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thanks for that, for the sharing. So the replay will get posted soon, and then you'll get a link to the replay. And I'll include this link in the email as well, the one for the program coming up. So you can take a look at it there. And if you have any questions, you can email us. And then, yes, anything else, Lori, or does anybody else have? Yeah, go ahead.
You know, the first point we made about, I'm trying to put something in the chat. It's a blog I wrote a year ago about working on the relationship. It's tongue in cheek. And I'll put that in the, it's a tongue in cheek.
That's a great,
kind of,
great
I'll put
blog
that in the
post that sort of
chat.
made that point. Yeah, about that. It was great.
Well,
Great.
thank you all for joining us. It's always a pleasure. And anything else you want to add, Dominic?
No, that's it. So all the best. Have a great rest
Yeah.
of the week and weekend. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. This was excellent.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.